In this day and age of college football, wins are now starting to get more rewarded than your strength of schedule. Paige Dower alongside Jimmy Hyams, who's on the road this time around for the SEC spring meetings all the way down in Destin, Florida. And the college football playoff format, expansion, seeding, ranking, all of that has been a massive topic of conversation with the commissioner and Greg Sankey himself. What's the immediate tone that you get from Sankey, Jimmy, after hearing all of the discussions with the new format?
Well, he definitely wants some changes made. And the commissioner of the league, by the way, he met with the media for 44 minutes on Monday before the meeting starts. So basically, it was to talk about what they're going to talk about when the meetings start Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. 80+% of the questions he was asked during that 44-minute session were about the college football playoff. The one part of that he really dislikes is that this particular committee obviously rewarded the one-loss record wins over a quality strength of schedule. And the thing that Greg Sankey really dislikes is he has seen some teams cancel games against quality opponents like Nebraska did to Tennessee because Nebraska doesn't want to run the risk of losing a game. So you're better off winning 11 games against a weak schedule than winning 9 against the toughest schedule in the country. And so they did not reward strength of schedule to any degree. And so that could impact a lot of things. It could impact whether the SEC goes from an 8-game schedule to 9. The other part that could impact that is if they go to 14 or 16 teams down the road and the SEC has 4 automatic bids, then the SEC might say, okay, it's not going to hurt us to play a 9-game conference schedule. They have not adopted that in previous years, in part because ESPN didn't offer more money. Mm-hmm. Now word is ESPN is offering about $80 million more on the TV package for the SEC if the SEC will go from 8 conference games to 9. So that's been one of the hot topics. Sankey was asked, do you prefer 14 or 16? He said, doesn't matter to me. He said, I'll take either one of them. But he does feel like there needs to be some tweaking, in particular with the strength of schedule. And without this particular committee valuing that, he's concerned about going to 9. But here's the other part of it, too. The committee changes. I think there might be as many as 6 new committee members. So will those new committee members value strength of schedule more than the previous committee did? And the other thing he said, I thought was interesting. He said a member of the committee told him, he said, if you play the number 1 team in the country and the number 130 team in the country, then we look at your average. So your average was 65. Mm-hmm. He said, so it might help you in the SEC or anybody just play the 65 and 66 best teams in the country. And because your average is going to be the same, so don't risk a loss versus number 1. Which Sankey doesn't like that. He really liked the fact that, for example, a couple of years ago, Alabama and Texas played in the non-conference games. He wants really good non-conference games, but he also doesn't want to run the risk of losing teams in the college football playoff.
Right.
So I don't know if they're going to go to 14 or 16. It'll be one of those two. I actually prefer 16 with no buys. If you have 12, if you have 14, you're going to have some first-round buys. So we'll see where that goes. But the big topic so far has been the college football playoff format and what changes they anticipate happening. This year, it's still at 12, and nothing changes except the seeding changes.
Right.
If you are seeded, the top 12 seeds, that's how you're going to be. The rankings will mirror the seeding. And as he pointed out, if you had that format this year, Tennessee would have hosted SMU. Exactly. They wouldn't have gone on the road and played the machine that was named Ohio State, which is the best in the country, clearly, right? We know that. We were there. Uh-huh. So we covered that. So that's another thing. So they're gonna go by seeding. Texas got bumped from a number 3 ranking to a number 5 seed, and therefore they didn't get a first-round bye. So I think that's a good move by the committee.
I think the other part of the straight seeding that you'll see this football season too is maybe in the discussions where it was saying that the conference championship game is losing value. I think it actually helps bring value back to those conference tournaments or conference championship games.
It's interesting that Kirby Smart today, the Georgia coach, and Steve Sarkisian with Texas, both said, we hear this talk about the conference championship game being devalued. Don't tell that to our staff and don't tell that to our players. Our players take a lot of pride in trying to win that conference championship.
I do think there's a lot of value in the regular season. I don't think a team that, I guess Texas last year, right? They're the 1 seed going into the SEC championship. I mean, there's some scenarios out there. I'm like, okay, they got a play-in game. I don't know if I agree with that. You know, they can play a championship game or they can play a game, but there should be some value to a regular season in terms of what you perform and what you do. You don't see a regular season basketball champion go in the SEC tournament play and then not make the tournament. I mean, it's not going to happen, right? So we have a little more limited spots than they do. But I enjoy the SEC championship. I'm a firm believer in that, but I'm going to support whatever's the conference we choose to do in that format.
We have an exceptional group of attorneys that work here. We're all trying to be better attorneys, be better advocates for our clients, be better people.
It makes me proud to be part of the team when I see how much the attorneys care about their clients.
It's truly one vision. I feel like every single person who works here has that same vision, and that's to treat all of our clients like family.
We've developed such a tight-knit team. Everyone is unified in being selfless in their representation.
The Garza Law Firm. Let us help.
If you want to take a 30,000-foot view and look down on it, yeah, some people in the media and others would say, well, it doesn't really matter because it doesn't have as much impact on the seeding or the playoff. But by golly, it matters to those players if they can win a ring. For you to say, we were the champions of the best conference in the country. So those two coaches said that's still very, very important, regardless of what outside noise they hear.
Yeah, absolutely. And even when Tennessee baseball was talking to the media earlier today ahead of their hosting of the NCAA regionals, they even went back to the SEC tournament and said that's maybe even harder than a run in Omaha. So certainly with the competition and everything that it could mean, it is certainly an important time. The other thing that you guys talked about with Sankey before we get to Diego Pavia and Zakai Zeigler is the House ruling. It still seems that there's a ton of uncertainty there. A lot of decisions don't appear to have been made at this point.
That's right. And Greg Sankey said that he had hoped that there would be a settlement, a House settlement before the meetings so they could more discuss the concrete elements of it. But when you don't, you still have the revenue sharing part of that. What's going to happen? Roster sizes, roster management. How are you going to deal with that? As Mike Elko said, the Texas A&M coach, he said there's no other. If you look at the NBA and the NFL and all these pro leagues, they all know what their roster is going to look like by now. They're not waiting until this late this close to the start of the season to try to figure out all this stuff. Mm-hmm. Revenue sharing and roster sizes and all that, they already know. And he said, so that's a real disadvantage right now for the college, in particular football teams, which are starting soon. So they would like to have an answer. The answer from Greg Sankey was, while we don't know for sure, we're doing the best we can in preparing for the potential results that we think might happen. So that's all they can do is discuss what they think is going to happen. And if they do happen that way, then they got a plan in place. If they don't, they might have to reshuffle the deck a little bit.
Yes. And then obviously some questions that you were asking of Greg Sankey earlier today or yesterday was, of course, about Zakai Zeigler when the news broke that he was suing the NCAA for his 5th year, mentioning he could make, $2 to $4 million if he gets that extra year back. And will players start to become the norm where they get 5 years of eligibility? How did Greg Sankey respond to that question?
When he was assistant commissioner of the Southland Conference back in 1992, the topic of a 5 years of eligibility came up. It was not advanced to the NCAA. In 98, when he was the Southland Conference commissioner, came up again. It had not advanced to the NCAA. In 2006 or 7, when Sankey was an associate commissioner of the SEC, he talked to Mike Shula, the then Alabama coach, and it did not advance to the NCAA. So Sankey said at that point, I put it aside. So that tells me that he doesn't think there's enough support. He doesn't think it's going to happen. Having said that, isn't the climate, isn't the tenor of the NCAA a whole lot different than it was in 2006? Absolutely. Sure. You got NIL, yes. You got transfer portal. Everything right now is in favor of the student athlete. Diego Pavia gets another year because he went to junior college. So because of the climate change, I'm not going to rule it out like Sankey did. I understand what was happening previously, but this is a whole different landscape. So now here's the thing too. If Zeigler wins and gets a 5th year, does that mean Jemai Mashak's coming back? Is Gainey coming back?
Yeah.
Millicent's coming back?
Lehman Jewelers offers more than 90 years of combined craftsman experience and is the leader in appraisals, estate, and custom jewelry. Kindness and integrity are our top values. Located in Turkey Creek and Maryville, Lehman Jewelers is your hometown jeweler of choice. Come experience the difference. A.G. Hines Company. They've been around for over 100 years, selling building materials since anyone can remember. Local Internet Pro. That's the home of Ty, the Internet Guy. Owner Ty Claiborne understands that different homes have different internet needs. Ty acts as a mediator between different cable internet providers and the homeowner while catering to your internet needs. He works with the homeowner from installation through implementation to save you money. Call Ty, the Internet Guy, 865-296-0285.
That changes the whole roster for Tennessee, right? Now, here's the thing, too. If they all come back, what does Rick Barnes do? Because that's going to exceed his roster limit.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do give that extra year to Zeigler, you got to give to everybody. So it's going to be interesting to see how that's going to play out. Right now, I don't think he's going to win it, but it's so unpredictable with the courts now. Again, the courts have sided with the athletes, college athletes, and almost everything they have done. So I'll be curious, and they need to make a decision pretty quickly, right?
Yeah. Well, and you would think that the courts would continue to side with the players, especially from the Diego Pavia angle of him starting in JUCO. You could look to Tennessee baseball with Alberto Asuna, and that ruling did not go their way. So it is interesting where they decide to rule in favor of or against, even if you start in JUCO like a Diego Pavia.
It seems like there's some arbitrary rulings from the NCAA, which, by the way, for years has frustrated a lot of college programs, a lot of college coaches, a lot of college administrators, because the NCAA will rule one way and you think, okay, that applies to everybody, and then you find out it doesn't.
You know, I know at the end of it, we're gonna try to iron out some things that make it a little better for the student athlete and better for the game too. But I don't want to comment specifically on that case because I don't know much about it. I'm glad to have Diego back and always fighting for the best possible experience in such a formative 4 and 5 years for college athletes.
Interesting from the Greg Sankey angle about this is while the NCAA has been very inconsistent, there were a group of administrators that met in Indianapolis at the NCAA tournament, and that's like across the street from the NCAA offices. And he said, in this group, he said, you know what, we shouldn't all be pointing fingers at the NCAA because we're part of the problem too. We have not exactly done a great job of being consistent with what we're doing also. So he's like, you know, the administrators deserve some of this blame just as the NCAA does for the inconsistent rulings that we have seen through the years.
Interesting. Well, I know you're incredibly busy. You're up and down the hallways getting all those interviews. What can we look forward to the rest of the day and the rest of your stay?
Well, today, so far, we've interviewed Clark Lee, we've interviewed Kalen DeBoer, and some of these are group settings. Steve Sarkisian, Mike White, Kirby Smart, Sean Miller, the basketball coach at Texas, Todd Golden, who, by the way, he said that speaking that Florida took at Tennessee was a wake-up call for his team and was an impetus for them to win the national championship. We've also had Brent Venables as an interview as well. We're going to get Lane Kiffin at 5 o'clock. We've got other interviews that we're going to try to track down in the hallway. I've got Tennessee folks who are being lined up for interviews. I got Bruce Pearl tomorrow morning. We're going to interview him. So a lot more coming your way as we try to get as many coaches and administrators as we can during these condensed SEC spring meetings. This is the first time it's only been 3 days. Usually it's 4 days and I can pace myself. Now I can't. This is not a marathon anymore. This is a sprint.
It is, but it's still a marathon that you now need to sprint, and hopefully you got snacks in the back pocket and you stay hydrated. Jimmy, I appreciate the time. We'll talk to you later this week.
Okay, thanks, Paige.
Yeah.